Putin only left North Korea a couple hours ago, and in that time, he's already threatened South Korea and already said that he's going to change Russia's nuclear doctrine. All of that within just a few hours of waving very passionately at Kim Jong, which is something that, for copyright reasons, I probably can't play My Heart Will Go On. But I want you to watch this clip with a sad song underneath of it and imagine that's the song that is being played underneath of it. So how did we get to this point? Well, as you know, Russia and North Korea signed a new pact. In this new pact, there's a few things that are going on. First is Russia needs weapons. So they're going to get, I believe it's like 5 million things, whether it be shells, ammunition, whether it be weapons, different kinds of weapons, small arms, artillery, you name it. They're getting all these things from North Korea. In return, North Korea is going to get really cheap gas and oil, and they're going to get parts for their own nuclear program. While that was going on, there was also another agreement put together that they would protect each other if each other would be attacked, which I must point out because it is blaringly honest. No one wants to attack North Korea. No one cares about North Korea. I don't know why North Korea would even think that other countries want to attack them. They just want to make sure that North Korea doesn't have a nuclear program because we don't want North Korea attacking other countries for no reason, because Kim is also a little bit of a crazy up here. When it comes to Russia, no one in the world wants to attack Russia. It's pretty obvious because if they did, by now, the countries would have fully gone in. Everyone's trying to avoid getting in any kind of war with Russia, which is why they're giving stuff to Ukraine to let Ukraine use to attack Russia. Just like how China's giving parts to Russia so they can build weapons to attack Ukraine. Same thing with North Korea, and looks like maybe even Vietnam. I don't even know, because later after his North Korean visit, he went to Vietnam, and they signed something there. That being said, Putin signed another agreement, which once again protects North Korea if South Korea decides to attack them, but then also stated that if South Korea were to give any kind of weapons to Ukraine, that it would be a problem. And I just want to go ahead and just kind of read some of Putin's quotes here. He says, "As for the supply of lethal weapons to the combat zone," meaning to Ukraine, "this would be a very big mistake." Which makes you wonder, wait a minute, so it's okay for you to go to North Korea and get weapons from them. But if South Korea does it, that's a big no-no. And the funny thing is, South Korea actually has a complete ban on giving any kind of lethal weapons to Ukraine. Something which, after Putin's comments, are like, you know what, guys? We should probably change this ban and allow it to happen. Because I think at this rate, South Korea is like, well, what do we have to lose here? Right now, North Korea doesn't really have many weapons. And Russia did state that they would give the weapons, meaning that they don't have the weapons to give them now. But it doesn't make much sense. And just to continue on Putin's speech, he says here, "I hope that this will not happen," meaning that South Korea would give weapons to Ukraine. He goes, "If this happens, then we'll also take appropriate decisions that are unlikely to please South Korea's current leadership." So he's threatening South Korea when South Korea, honestly, was like the guy in the corner, just quiet, sitting there. They have given some kind of humanitarian aid to Ukraine, but never did they give anything lethal. And they're just like, "You talking about us over here? Like, we're worried about North Korea. We don't care about you, and we weren't going to give anything to them, but now we should." And it's funny, because so this is what the South Korean president responded with. He says, "It's absurd that two parties with a history of launching wars of invasion, the Korean War and the war in Ukraine, are now vowing mutual military cooperation on the premise of a preempted attack by the international community that will never happen. And he's not wrong. Once again, no one wants to attack North Korea. No one cares about North Korea. No one wakes up in the morning and goes, I wonder what North Korea is doing today. The nuclear program, a little bit different. And then when it comes to Russia, no country wants to get into an active war with Russia because it would start a world war. And everyone's been on pins and needles to make sure that doesn't happen. Unfortunately, that means that Ukraine, they don't get the weapons they need, and they don't get them fast enough, and it's causing a lot more death than it should be. But for Putin to make this agreement about a preempted attack, they're almost setting themselves up for a false flag operation to pull the world into a war. And that's what a lot of people are saying right now, because it really doesn't make any sense to what's going on here. So remember, he just left North Korea. He flew over to Vietnam, and he was speaking and said, Russia is considering changes to its current nuclear doctrine due to developments, and that, quote, it's related to lowering the threshold for the use of nuclear weapons. Putin has been threatening about nuclear weapons now for over 2 years. And they're empty threats because, look what he said about China. If China were to destroy one of their submarines, they wouldn't use nuclear force. But if they destroyed 2 of them, it's like, oh, that's an interesting threshold. And then what would the threshold be for the other side? Say if Ukraine, how many things does Ukraine have to destroy for Russia to determine that they need to use nuclear weapons? Or at what point, because Russia kept on drawing these red lines, and then those red lines would get crossed, or something would happen, and nothing would happen. Remember that Putin said that if the West had given weapons to Ukraine, that would happen. Nope. Putin said that if the West gave weapons to Ukraine, they'll be used in Russia, that would start a world war, and nuclear weapons would be used. Nope, nothing. It's just all empty threats. So when it came to this, he just once again just spewing information. I think sometimes this man just loves to hear himself talk. And I mean, if you read some of the quotes that he put out when you translate it, it just makes you go like, oh, okay. So this I want to read for you because this was quoted in the Kyiv Independent where he says, Putin claimed that Russia does not need a preventative strike as part as its nuclear doctrine. Why? Because, quote, because in a strike, the enemy will be guaranteed to be destroyed. Sure. I want you guys to remember something. That when Russia started, or when Putin started his invasion of Ukraine, he didn't know the status of his own weapons, which is why his very first week failed. He thought all of his equipment was, up to par, the best of the best. Turns out people were siphoning money off, they were stealing things, and it wasn't the case. But if you jump back, he was going to do this invasion in the year of 2020, which, remember, was under Trump, because Trump kept on saying if it was under me, it would never happen. He had to push it back, mostly because pandemic and other things. If he had done it then, his army would have been even worse. That being said, we're now 4 years away from the pandemic. And while Russia has been spending money on making weapons and building tanks, taking tanks out of storage, refurbishing them, their nuclear program really hasn't changed. So they've had the same stuff for decades. How much of that equipment would just fail automatically? And that's one thing a lot of people have been saying. It's just like, he can keep on saying this, but he doesn't have the real backing behind it. You go back to the 50s, 60s, 70s, the threat of nuclear war with Russia, and it was a scary time because Russia had the money to do all this stuff. They don't anymore. Or they haven't been maintaining the stuff that they need to be maintained. So if they had weapons from 4 years ago, and any indication of what happened from 2020 to 2022 probably happened in the nuclear weapons sector as well. Meaning they probably skipped out on things don't work, things are probably half there. And don't get me wrong, he definitely has nuclear weapons that can be used and are ready to go right at this very moment. But if things were to get put into the skies, he's mentioning how, things would be destroyed, guaranteed. He knows that the second he puts it up there, he's asking for things that he would not be able to control, because the amount of nukes that the rest of the world has and where they're stationed is on another level that he would not be able to fight off. So, once again, these threats are all empty. They really don't mean anything. That being said, I just want to end this video on one note. And I mentioned this in my video on TikTok yesterday, and I just want to explain it out. Putin is in love with Kim Jong-un. And I say that because Putin has always wanted to be loved by his people. He wanted to be looked at as a god, a king, someone that everyone looks to and just would do anything for. And he wanted that not only in his country, but around the world. When he started his invasion, people didn't like him to begin with, but the world altogether, collectively, hated him and loved Zelensky. And I think he got jealous of that. And when it comes to other terrorists in the world and world leaders, there's only a handful that are loved by their people. One being Kim. And the only reason why his people even love him is because they know nothing else. And there's massive banners and posters, and they throw parades for him and parties and all these crazy things. Because once again, he's a dictator. And you do this or you're gone. That's kind of what it is. But Putin looks at Kim, who has all this power and fame and is loved and all that. And I think he's jealous of him. He brought him a car. They were smiling and giggling. It looked like a bromance. Let's be honest. It was a straight up bromance. The two of them driving in that car, the video of them waving to each other. They have love in their eyes for each other. And it's just the funniest thing ever. And we did a video on TikTok, and the Russian trolls ripped it to shreds because I think in a way they also know it's true. 100% that Putin looks at Kim and goes, wow, he's got all this power and he's loved by his people. He's got these parades and this and that. And I wish I had that in my own country. Not only does he not have it in his own country, he doesn't have it anywhere in the world. And I think it's something that's definitely going to be looked at in history books as Putin definitely had an image problem with himself. He had no confidence in himself because he wanted this expectation of being loved and cared about. And he didn't get it because why? He was a dictator, straight up dictator. And the reason why I bring this up is because I honestly want your thought on this entire thing. I find it very interesting, and I really, truly believe that that's what Putin thinks in all of this. So let me know what you think about that in the comment section below. There's been a lot of news today, by the way. I put at least 7 different videos on TikTok talking about, obviously, the new NATO chief, talking about Romania, what's going on there. We're getting new air defense systems. The U.S. announced, or at least they sort of announced, that they're pausing all missile deliveries for the Patriot systems for other countries to go to Ukraine. There's a lot that's going on, honestly. Then we also know that a couple Russian oil depots are destroyed last night, or at least damaged, like Luke Oil. There's a lot of news happening at once, and I think it's all in preparation for Ukraine to get F-16s. As soon as they get their air defenses in the skies and are ready to go, and they can protect these F-16s, they're going to go in. It's going to be a crazy summer. Today's the official first day of summer, and it's going to be a hot one. It is going to be a hot one. Anyway, once again, I know I'm going on. Be sure to comment in the comment section what you think about the bromance between Putin and Kim, and be sure to follow me for more.